My guest today is Harry Decker.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Name of my presentation is Why Net Zero is a Pipe Dream and Impossible to Achieve Without Destroying Civilization. I'll mention that I have a background in military intelligence, computer programming, and technical writing. What I'm going to do is first critique the United Nations since they're pushing climate change, and then get into fossil fuels and climate change after that. This independent report is not associated with any organization that focuses on net zero, such as Net Zero Watch and Net Zero Tracker. Net Zero Watch, both of these are based in the United Kingdom. Net Zero Watch challenges climate change policies and have a website, Net Zero Watch, and Net Zero Tracker promotes net zero policies and also based in the United Kingdom. Netzerotracker.net is their website. This flat map produced by NASA shows that planet Earth is very green in many places. The Earth has grown greener over the past 4 decades because extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has caused forests to enlarge and crop yields to increase. This is good, not bad. Even so, certain people worldwide are pushing an agenda called Green New Deal. Their idea of green is to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to achieve net zero, which seems counterintuitive. The United Nations is a major organization promoting net zero. This report was partly designed to demonstrate why the United Nations is both wrong and deluded, and to challenge the narrative with facts and common sense. There's a combination of text and pictures throughout this presentation to make it easy to understand and enable everyone to see the big picture. The term pipe dream first occurred in the 1870s to describe the fantasy experienced by an opium pipe smoker. Per the United Nations, what is net zero? Put simply, net zero means cutting carbon emissions to a small amount of residual emissions that can be absorbed and durably stored by nature and other carbon dioxide removal measures, leaving zero in the atmosphere. How can net zero be achieved? Transitioning to a net zero world is one of the greatest challenges humankind has faced. It calls for nothing less than a complete transformation of how we produce, consume, and move about. The energy sector is the source of around 3/4 of greenhouse gas emissions today and holds the key to averting the worst effects of climate change. Replacing polluting coal, gas, and oil-fired power with energy from renewable sources such as wind or solar would dramatically reduce carbon emissions. Again, this is per the United Nations. Here's the exterior shot of the United Nations in New York City. Why was the United Nations established? I'm only going to read underlined portions of some of these. The people who founded the United Nations in 1945 had witnessed the horrors of 2 world wars, which caused the deaths of approximately 100 million civilians and soldiers. Many major cities such as Warsaw, London, and Tokyo were nearly totally destroyed. In today's dollars, damage estimates from World War II alone amount to $4 trillion. Members of the United Nations wanted to prevent another world war, particularly because weapons were becoming more deadly, such as the atomic bomb. So members of the United Nations drafted a Universal Declaration of Human Rights to bring peace to all nations of the world. Had all nations heeded these rights, it would have indeed brought peace to the world, but certain leaders, or should we say tyrants, didn't give a damn about human rights and world peace. The United Nations is currently made up of 193 member states. Organization has many purposes such as maintain international peace and security, prevent and remove threats to peace and suppress acts of aggression, settle international disputes peacefully in accordance with international law, promote friendly relations among nations based on respect for equal rights and self-determination, improve the lives of poor people to help nations work together to conquer hunger, disease, and illiteracy, deliver humanitarian aid in event of a natural disaster or war, encourage respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, and lastly, support sustainable development and climate action. About war since World War II, data collected by Uppsala University in Sweden identifies 285 distinct armed conflicts that have taken place since 1946, at least for 6 major conflicts, such as the Vietnam War. According to the Geneva Academy, there are 110 armed conflicts currently taking place in the world. A deadly conflict is currently taking place between Israel and Palestine. Since 1948, there have been 7 major Arab-Israeli wars and a dozen other wars and conflicts with neighboring countries. About genocides since World War II. According to Genocide Watch and similar websites, there have been about 90 major genocides around the world in up to 156 countries. As many as 100 million civilians, including children, have perished. Russia's war on Ukraine is being called a genocide because many civilians in Ukraine have been killed and civilian structures such as schools and hospitals have been targeted. Genocides are currently taking place in 12 countries. About hunger and disease in the world today. According to the United Nations World Food Program, 9 million people die of hunger every year in the world. According to the Center for Disease Control, an estimated 249 malaria cases occurred in 2022, leading to 608,000 malaria deaths in a single year. According to the World Vision website, there are hundreds of millions of people, mostly in third world countries, that do not have access to clean drinking water. The World Health Organization estimates that diarrhea kills around 760,000 children under age 5 each year, making it the second leading cause of death for children worldwide. Also, according to the World Health Organization, millions of people in underdeveloped countries, especially children, are falling ill and even dying from other preventable and treatable diseases. And here's a list of like 20 different diseases. The United Nations has over 36,000 staff members and 474 duty stations around the world. On 24 December 2023, the General Assembly approved a $3.6 billion budget for 2024, including the establishment of a special account to finance the organization's peace building fund. The General Assembly also adopted nearly $50 million in additional funding for decisions taken by the Human Rights Council, the UN's primary forum on human rights matters. For over 3 decades, the United Nations has claimed and is claiming that climate change is eventually going to kill billions of people, cause disasters worldwide, and even make the planet uninhabitable. In July 2023, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated the following: "Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived." Guterres and many others claim that we are facing an existential threat. In 1989, a senior United Nations environmental official, Noel Brown, director of the New York office of the United Nations Environment Program, warned that rising sea levels could wipe out entire nations if global warming wasn't reversed by the year 2000. He also stated that melting polar ice caps could cause ocean levels to rise up to 3 feet, covering the Maldives and other flat island nations. Coastal regions will be inundated and could displace millions of people. Crop failures could lead to an exodus of eco-refugees. Shifting climate patterns will bring back the 1930s Dust Bowl. If the climate problem is not solved by the year 2000, it will go beyond human control. None of these predictions came true. These dire predictions are among many that have not materialized. Among them, those made by Al Gore in his 2006 documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. Many well-known publications and news programs have been parroting doom and gloom predictions for decades that do not materialize. Has mainstream media ever discussed these failed predictions? No. Instead, it seems they hype any extreme weather event and ignore or downplay any event that contradicts the climate change narrative. They also fail to make historical comparisons. Joel Gilbert, who once worked for Al Gore, decided to investigate Gore's past and discovered that Gore was not a very good university student and that he later fabricated lies regarding climate change. Gilbert, who has interacted with Al Gore, created a documentary film titled The Climate According to AI Al Gore, which is due to be released on December 10, 2024. Gilbert was interviewed in September 2024 on the Tom Nelson podcast. Gilbert concluded that Al Gore is an opportunist, a liar, a fraud, a plagiarist, a hypocrite, and someone who berates people who do not agree with him. The United Nations takes up the cause of climate change. For many years, the United Nations has been posting the following statement all over the internet. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns, mainly caused by human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. The first part of the statement is true, in that climate change indeed refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. The second part of the statement is false, in that humans, by burning fossil fuels, are the main cause of climate change. To say such a thing is ridiculous because it cannot be proven. Long before humans, climate was changing through natural causes for billions of years. So what happened to natural causes? Did they suddenly disappear overnight? There have been periods in the past, long before humans, where temperatures and carbon dioxide levels have been much higher than they are today. The Earth seems to have adjusted quite well on its own. The main point is the United Nations, for the most part, over the past 80 years, has proven to be ineffective. They have failed to prevent wars, genocides, starvation, and treatable diseases, and they have failed to protect human rights. Why does the United Nations raise the alarm about climate? The United Nations cannot prevent deaths that are currently happening all over the world, yet they claim they want to prevent deaths that might occur in the future due to climate change. Most people should find this absurd. One has to wonder if Secretary General Guterres is attempting to avert attention away from the failures of the United Nations by trying to convince the worldwide public that the main threat to their existence is rising temperatures that will cause horrible disasters, and that it's the public's fault because they are burning fossil fuels. Not only that, we are told that we must act now before it's too late. We're reaching a tipping point, they say. This outlook reminds one of a fanatic standing on a corner holding up a large cardboard sign that reads, "Repent or the world will perish." By crying wolf, perhaps Guterres also wants to justify additional funding for the United Nations. Okay, so let's say we repent. Let's say we get rid of everything that uses fossil fuels. What does that entail? The main point of focus are automobiles. According to an internet search, there are about 1.5 billion vehicles on Earth in 2024, which includes cars, trucks, and SUVs. About 19% of those vehicles are in the United States, over 280 million. We can all agree that at one time, automobiles indeed created horrible air pollution. Here's a picture of Los Angeles in the 1970s. In 1975, the Environmental Protection Agency required all cars manufactured after 1975 to have a catalytic converter in order to meet the Clean Air Act of 1970. The act mandated that vehicles reduce their emissions by 90% within 5 years. This act and requiring vehicles to undergo annual emission inspections greatly helped to reduce air pollution over time. Nowadays, Los Angeles has much clearer air than it once did, but it also has many more automobiles than it did in the 1970s. So air pollution remains a problem there and in other cities like Phoenix and Houston. Currently, there are 13 states in many counties, such as 42 out of 67 counties in Pennsylvania, that do not require annual emissions testing. This seems to be counterproductive and a concern that should be investigated. And I might point out that I like to walk a mile every day, and because I live in a county that does not require emissions inspection, you really notice all the vehicles going by that give off horrible fumes. If the cloud cover is low, it holds in all those fumes, and you actually have to go indoors because it's that bad that you can't stand it. About Earth's atmosphere, air pollution and other types of pollution are indeed problems. But the people who are pushing the climate change agenda claim that carbon dioxide is also a pollutant, which is an assertion, not a fact. Some scientists argue that it is a pollutant, where others argue it's not. Certain politicians and mainstream media fail to concede that there is scientific debate over the subject. Otherwise, the science is not settled, no matter who states the science is settled. It is stated on the website clintel.org, Climate Intelligence, that there are 1,952 signatories, to include Nobel Prize winner Dr. John Clauser, declare there is no climate emergency. The list below shows the gases that make up the Earth's atmosphere in percentages. Carbon dioxide makes up 0.04% of the atmosphere, which is why it is called a trace gas. And you can see that nitrogen is 78%, oxygen 21%, argon 0.93 of 1%, and water vapor varies between 0 and 4%. And then, of course, there are minuscule amounts of other elements and that make up the atmosphere that are measured in like 10,000ths and millions of 1%. For instance, methane is most commonly stated as 1.7 parts per million. One wonders what percentage of Americans know at least basic stats about the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is a nutrient, not a pollutant. Without CO2, life on this planet would end. Thousands of scientists around the world agree with the above statement. Mainstream media, however, fails to point out the benefits of carbon dioxide, choosing to portray CO2 as a killer gas. There are many commercial and medical uses for CO2. If people who tout climate change truly want to eliminate excess CO2, they would give up drinking carbonated beverages. There are at least 500 billion cans and bottles in the world containing a carbonated liquid. Once those are consumed, they will be replaced by 500 billion more, and so on. Carbon has been vilified also, which is equally ridiculous. After hydrogen, helium, and oxygen, carbon is the most abundant element in the universe. Carbon is commonly referred to as the building block of life because it forms up to 20 million organic compounds, more than any other element. It is the second most abundant element in the human body after oxygen. Overall, more compounds of carbon exist than any other chemical element except for hydrogen. Carbon is present in all fossil fuels from 75% to 85%. If fossil fuels contain half or less of carbon than at present, there may have been no industrial revolution, or at least a huge delay and a much smaller impact on society. Mainstream media prefers to air pictures such as the one here, with the obvious attempt to manipulate public opinion. Any kind of disaster will do, include huge forest fires, vast floods, and hurricane winds ripping up trees. Over the years, maps depicting temperatures on weather reports have gotten redder, both in the United States and Europe. The above map of Pennsylvania shows temperatures ranging from 79 to 89 degrees Fahrenheit. These temps can be considered very warm, but not hot, which would be in the 90s. Very hot would be in the 100s. Notice there is no gradation of color on this map. It literally visually tells people that it's hot everywhere. Here's a quote from a news article titled, "No, weather maps aren't scaremongering about climate change." And National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration spokesperson told Snopes that the point isn't to trick anyone or to make the weather seem scarier. The point is to make the maps more intuitive and easy to understand. How many people do you think believe this statement? Aside from that, anyone living in Pennsylvania knows that it's cooler in the shade and that the temperature quickly drops once the sun goes down. It's not as if they live in the desert. For decades, we have been hearing about replacing the internal combustion engine with a battery to create an electrical vehicle to eliminate carbon emissions. It seems like a relatively simple solution, but what seems simple is oftentimes not. Lithium-ion batteries are huge and heavy. Manufacturing or refining lithium creates pollution and toxic waste in the process. Insurance and repairs for EVs are significantly higher compared to those same costs for ICE cars. A replacement battery for an EV can cost between $5,000 and $20,000. Because EVs are so heavy, tires wear out faster and need to be replaced every 20 to 40,000 miles. Tires generally last 40 to 100,000 miles on regular automobiles. An elephant in the room not too many people talk about is the fact that when batteries and EVs are charged, the power at those charging stations is derived from the electric grid. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the grid obtains its power from these sources in order from most to least: natural gas, nuclear, coal, wind, hydro, solar, wood, oil, and others. 86% of power to the grid comes from sources not wind and solar. Here's a picture of a lithium mining operation. According to global data, there are more than 34 lithium mines worldwide. Among the 10 largest five are in Australia, 2 are in Chile, 2 are in China, and 1 is in Argentina. Brazil and Canada also mine large amounts of lithium. It is stated in an article by BB Research, the global market for lithium mining is expected to grow from $5.7 billion in 2023 and projected to reach $9.1 billion by the end of 2028. It requires many heavy machines powered by fossil fuels to mine, transport, and refine ores to produce lithium. Lithium is extracted from salty underground water, or brine, by pumping it into ponds where the water evaporates, leaving behind lithium salt. Here's a picture of lithium salt evaporation pools in northern Chile. Over 580,000 gallons of water are needed to produce 1 ton of lithium. Different colors of lithium ponds are caused by different concentrations of lithium carbonate. The surrounding air, soil, and water can be contaminated. Too much exposure can cause and has caused serious medical problems in humans. The Silver Peak mine in Nevada since 1967 is the only lithium mine in the United States and also has evaporation pools. Though infrequent, lithium ion batteries in EVs can spontaneously ignite and incinerate the car. It's extremely difficult to put out the intense fire. There have been several instances where entire parking garages have been destroyed by an EV catching on fire. EVs are not permitted to park in parking garages in many countries. A news item posted on October 1, 2024 stated that Jeep is recalling more than 194,000 plug-in hybrid SUVs worldwide because they can catch fire with the ignition turned off. In addition, Jeep is urging owners not to charge the SUVs and to park them outdoors and away from structures until they are repaired. This photo shows the damage caused by a Mercedes-Benz EV that caught on fire in a parking garage in Oncheon, South Korea, August 2024. 140 cars were damaged or destroyed. There's actual footage of this fire on the internet. According to data from the International Energy Agency and others, an estimated 4,125 electric cars catch fire each year. Although many more combustion-powered vehicles catch on fire, they are much easier to extinguish. Putting out an electrical car fire can take many hours and require tens of thousands of gallons of water. There are several YouTube channels that specialize in reporting fires caused by EVs, as well as downsides of converting to EVs. Here's a headline from Fox Business News, January 2024. Electric buses are sitting unused in cities across the United States. Cities coast to coast grappling with broken down e-buses that cannot be fixed. 3 of 5 e-buses in Asheville, North Carolina are not operating due to a combination of problems, one of them being that it's difficult to get parts. Proterra, founded in 2004 in Burlington, California, and the largest e-bus company in the United States, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Other info: 2 of 4 e-buses in Colorado Springs, Colorado, acquired in 2021 are not running. They cost $1.2 million apiece, mostly paid for by government grants. All 8 e-buses in Jackson Hole, Wyoming are broken. These buses cost $1 million apiece. And there's a list of other cities across the United States that are having problems with e-buses. From Pittsburgh about e-buses, per www.centersquare.com. People are so well-intentioned, but if you look at the details, it's a lot more complicated, said Diana Fergott-Roth, director of the Center for Energy, Climate, and Environment at the Heritage Foundation. People don't want to be seen as against something that might help the environment, but you have to look at the nuts and bolts of it. There's also the question of why do we want to be dependent on China or another country for our transportation? With the LNG, liquid natural gas buses, which are very low emission, we're not dependent on anybody. From New York, per www.govtech.com. The director of the New York Association for Pupil Transportation said 20 out of 100 electric school buses are down on any given day due to problems with the buses or with their charging devices. Mostly Republican lawmakers, along with some local school officials in New York, are putting up caution lights in front of government Kathy Hochul's mandate to completely electrify the state's fleet of about 45,000 school buses by 2035. The U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration has awarded $1.66 billion in grants this summer for new buses, most of them zero emission. Here's a headline from Net Zero Watch. 3rd London electric bus catches fire in just weeks after a double-decker bus exploded, sparking traffic chaos. That's January 2024. And then per the Hill Times article, October 19, 2024, EV battery fires are a global problem that we need to address in Canada. Ignoring the issue may not only come at the expense of public safety, but also that of the public perception to act on climate change through fuel switching. Despite the negative drawbacks in fires, there's money to be made from lithium. Globally, 80% of lithium is used in manufacturing rechargeable batteries for electronics, electric vehicles, and grid storage. The global lithium-ion battery market, valued at approximately $65 billion in 2023, is projected to grow to approximately $447 billion by 2032. Demand for lithium-ion batteries is expected to increase almost 7-fold by 2030. China is expected to continue to dominate global production with an estimated 68% of the world's lithium-ion batteries being manufactured there by 2030. Lithium is also used in heat-resistant glass and ceramics, grease lubricants, and additives for iron, steel, and aluminum. In medicine, lithium is used to treat bipolar disorder. Long-term use, however, has toxic effects on the thyroid gland and the kidneys. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration banned the use of lithium in the 1940s because of fatalities, but they lifted the ban in 1970. Our homes require power for heating and cooling and lighting. Within our homes, we utilize many modern conveniences that plug into an electric wall socket to power those devices. Worldwide, there are billions of such devices, such as washers, and I have a whole list of them through electric blankets and electric power tools. The average American household has 24 electronic devices, as well as 40 to 50 light bulbs, which can account for a significant portion of the home's energy use. All these devices require power from the electric grid, and all these devices eventually run on battery power? If so, how many billions of batteries will that require? This graph produced by Forbes shows global energy consumption in 2023 and sources of energy. Keep in mind, in this case, that energy is not only provided to an electrical grid, but also to all kinds of vehicles and machines worldwide that use fossil fuels independent of the grid. For most to least, energy sources are oil at 31.7%, coal at 26.5%, natural gas at 23.3%, all renewables combined 8.2%, hydro at 6.4%, and nuclear at 4%. To convert the world to renewables only, there's a long way to go. If anyone looks into the details, they might indeed think pipe dream. In addition to cars, trucks, and SUVs, there are about 600 million motorcycles worldwide. There are millions more mopeds and scooters, primarily powered by small gasoline engines. Many are powered purely by batteries too. But those batteries, like EV batteries, have to be charged or replaced. There are 80 million electric bicycles and mopeds in the world, with 10 to 20 million more added every year. Let's say that all cars, trucks, SUVs, motorcycles, mopeds, and scooters are converted into electrical vehicles running on battery power alone. Will this help to achieve net zero? It's not even close. To supply power to the electric grid, to charge billions of batteries, a huge amount of wind and solar farms will have to be constructed and connected to the grid. Never mind the huge amount of minerals and materials needed to build these wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries. The mining, refining, manufacturing, transportation, and installation will create pollution and toxic waste in the process. There will be disposal problems when these devices expire. Wind and solar farms will also impact the environment and ecosystems. Some claim that it's worth the cost. Such people need to be asked to prove it. Aside from cars, trucks, SUVs, motorcycles, mopeds, and scooters, what other vehicles and machines are powered by fossil fuels? Airplanes are certainly ubiquitous. It would seem that mainstream media should be just as focused on airplanes as they are automobiles when it comes to burning fossil fuels. Common sense tells us that planes of any size are not going to run on battery power or solar panels on their wings. If asked, could anyone in mainstream media tell us how many there are of each of the following aircraft and how much gas it takes to power them? And I have these listed from most to least. You can see military planes and jets are at the top, and civilian helicopters, military copters, and so on down. And I couldn't find out how many like private prop planes there are in the world. And I have a note at the bottom. The U.S. military has about 630 F-35s and plans to buy about 1,800 more. Cost so far for this advanced fighter jet has amounted to $2 trillion, and it costs $38,000 per hour to keep one in the air. A Boeing 747 commercial plane burns around 10 to 11 tons, approximately 22,000 to 24,000 pounds of jet fuel per hour. It can hold a maximum of 57,000 gallons of fuel. According to the JetNet website, there are 24,270 private jets in operation worldwide as of July 2024. Approximately 63% of the world's private jets are registered in the United States. Depending on the model, their jets can hold anywhere from 900 to 1,200 gallons of fuel. These jets can consume anywhere between 130 and 230 gallons per hour. Regarding air traffic, approximately 100,000 flights take off and land every day all over the globe. This number includes passenger, cargo, and military aircraft. There are about 5,670 passenger flights daily in the United States alone. On average, 6 million people fly every day. There's an average of 9,728 planes in the sky at any given time. There are 9,000 commercial airports in the world and an additional 31,000 small and private airports. About aviation fuel, commercial planes use upwards to 100 billion gallons of fuel a year. It's not known how much fuel private and military aircraft consume per year. To reduce carbon emissions from aircraft, the international aviation industry has set a goal to reach net zero carbon by 2050. Sustainable aviation fuel is considered to be the best near-term opportunity to meet these goals. So what is sustainable aviation fuel? An article dated July 2024 on the Fresh Energy website about sustainable aviation fuels states, industry leaders are putting significant resources toward the rapid development of low-carbon aviation fuel, aiming to decarbonize flights while planning for massive business development in the coming decades. Meanwhile, state and federal policymakers are exploring new rules to incentivize this energy transition and usher in a new lower emissions era of aviation. And this article is basically stated that they plan to come up with something to replace current fuel for aircraft, and they hope they can develop something that works. It is later mentioned in the article that winter oilseeds could be used as a source for biofuel. If anyone takes the time to read this article, one would see that there's a lot of noble talk about reducing carbon, but no real solutions exist at the present. It is later stated, to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change, we must decarbonize every sector of our economy. The above picture shows a field of camelina. Winter oilseeds are cool season crops that are grown in the upper Midwest and Northwest of the United States and Northern Europe. They can be used as dual crops when rotated with corn, soybean, and small grains. Some winter oilseeds include oilseed rape, camelina, pennycress, and canola. Camelina and pennycress are oil-rich plants that can be converted into renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel. About growing crops for fuel, it's quite probable that most people have never heard of winter oilseed crops. Tractors and harvesting equipment are needed to grow these crops. Trucks will be needed to transport the seeds to a processing factory. That factory will most likely be powered by fossil fuels. When the finished product is ready, it will have to be transported by trucks and even trains, planes, and ships. So how many millions of acres of land are going to be used to grow these crops? Will they truly be effective as fuel? Will all the transport vehicles be fueled with winter oilseeds as well? Instead of us citizens who have to abide by policies over which we seem to have little control, politicians and mainstream media should be asking these questions. They need to keep in mind that crops grown to be used for fuel means less food for people. Let's assume that all tractors are banned overnight worldwide, unless millions of workers get into those fields with picks, shovels, and hoes to plant, water, maintain, and harvest crops. There will be mass starvation within a few years. There are about 4.2 million tractors in the United States and over 660,000 tractors in Canada. There are over 5 million tractors in China and over 10 million in India, which has the world's largest cropland. 2 million new tractors are sold every year, not to mention millions of other types of farming equipment, such as seeders, harrows, and on-through cabs and loaders. As world population grows, it only makes sense that humans will have to grow more food. Most tractors run on diesel fuel. Some have gasoline engines. A few run on battery power. It's rather doubtful if wind and solar energy are going to provide adequate and reliable power to a tractor. Diesel fuel is energy dense and needed to power other heavy machines such as freight trucks, utility trucks, trains, buses, cargo ships, cruise ships, large yachts, excavating equipment, construction equipment, road maintenance equipment, snow removal equipment, logging equipment, forest maintenance equipment, military vehicles, naval ships, and millions of pickup trucks, cars, and vans that use diesel engines. On the right is a picture of the largest tractor in the world, the Big Bud 16V 747, which was constructed in Montana. It's famous across the globe for these amazing features. It weighs around 50 tons. It's twice the size of many of the largest production tractors in the world. It has 1,100 horsepower and a 1,000-gallon fuel tank. On the left is a picture of the American Wright 750 horsepower tractor. The Detroit diesel engine was nicknamed Earthquake, and power can be boosted to 850 horsepower. Such mechanical marvels are vital to help produce food to sustain the world's population. There are approximately 83 million diesel generators worldwide needed for emergency power in case of inclement weather or natural disasters, and to supply power to utility grids during peak powers of demand, and to supply power to industrial sites, construction sites, mining sites, and even remote homes and farms. They are needed for infrastructure projects. Most hospitals rely on backup generators that are powered by either diesel fuel or gasoline. They're used at concerts and festivals. Data centers heavily rely on diesel generators in case of power failure. Here's a picture of a battery storage system for a wind farm. Solar farms and wind farms store extra power in a battery energy storage system for backup in case of increased demand for power or in case of loss of power due to inclement weather or a natural disaster. These storage facilities are huge and stocked with mostly lithium-ion batteries and also some lead-acid batteries. There are many articles on the internet promoting these battery energy storage systems, but very few of these articles fail to point out a huge downside of these facilities. Most commercial battery energy storage systems have a duration of 2 to 4 hours. In case of a severe power outage, would you prefer to have a diesel generator on hand or a warehouse full of batteries? If the generator runs low on fuel, one can add more fuel. How to add more wind and solar energy to batteries once they are drained. Also, what to do if there are long periods when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. It would seem that solar and wind farms would have to rely on fossil fuel or nuclear power for backup. Or perhaps people should be advised to stockpile firewood. About boats and ships. So far, we've discussed cars, planes, and tractors. Now let's talk about boats and ships. Not counting canoes and sailboats, most boats and ships are powered by gasoline and diesel engines. Though a few larger boats with sails can be powered by the wind, it's rather doubtful if they can be powered by an array of solar panels. Here's a list of different kinds of boats that are powered by fossil fuels. Number for some of these ships will soon be discussed, but numbers for some of them, such as motorboats and jet skis, are unknown. But they probably number in multi-millions worldwide. And we'll talk about naval vessels later. And as you can see, we got cargo ships down through jet skis. Here's a picture of one of the largest container ships, the CMA-CGM Benjamin Franklin, that visits ports on the west coast of the United States. This ship carries approximately 4.5 million gallons of fuel oil. It's capable of carrying 18,000 TEU, a 20-foot equivalent unit, which is a shipping container with internal dimensions of about 20 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 8 feet tall. It is powered by a huge two-stroke diesel engine. CMA-CGM is a French shipping and logistics company. Over 250 million containers are shipped worldwide every year, and about 95% of cargo in the world is shipped. Take a look around you. If your desk, your computer, your phone, your television, your carpet, your lamps, your shoes, and even your clothes do not say that they were manufactured in the United States, chances are that they were once in a container on a cargo ship. Shipping containers usually last for about 20 years and are usually repurposed. From 2008 to 2022, the World Shipping Council estimates that there was an average of 1,566 containers lost at sea each year. According to an article on the internet titled Container Shipping by the Numbers, the global shipping container industry is expected to reach $12 billion by 2027. Figures around it. There are about 55,000 merchant ships that trade internationally, including over 15,000 general cargo ships, 12,200 bulk cargo carriers, 7,300 crude oil tankers, 7,000 ro-ro ships, 5,600 chemical tankers, 5,300 container ships, and 2,000 liquefied natural gas tankers. Roll-on, roll-off ro-ro ships are cargo ships designed to carry wheeled cargo such as cars, trucks, motorcycles, semi-tractor trailer trucks, buses, trailers, and railroad cars, all of which are driven on and off the ship on their own wheels using a platform vehicle. In the past years, the average container ship size has doubled. There are 835 active ports in the world, In the United States alone, there are more than 360 commercial ports. Pictured below is a ro-ro cargo ship. The Port of Los Angeles has the greatest cargo volume in the world. It handled over 10 million TEU containers in fiscal year 2021-22. This port is made up of 7,500 acres of land, reaches over 43 miles of shoreline, and has 25 cargo terminals and 120 miles of rail. Shipping cargo on container ships is absolutely vital to transport material goods and food all over the world, including huge volumes of grain: wheat, corn, oats, rye, barley, rice, sorghum, and seeds. The Pacific Flourish, shown above, is known as the largest bulk carrier ship with a carrying capacity of 399,000 tons. Bulk carriers are also ship coal, bauxite, iron ore, fertilizer, sugar, timber, cement, chemicals, and household goods. This cannot be done without using huge amounts of fossil fuels. What are the downsides? According to multiple sources, the largest container ships combined produce more pollution than all the cars in the world, primarily due to the high sulfur content of the fuel they burn, known as bunker fuel, which results in significantly higher emissions of sulfur oxides compared to modern cars. Some estimates say a single large container ship can pollute as much as 50 million cars. One such source is a company based in the Netherlands called CE Delft. Apparently, CE stands for Committed to the Environment, and Delft is a type of Dutch earthenware. New age, cleaner, greener container ships. Articles about new cargo and container ships state that every effort is being made to improve the technology, to improve fuel efficiency, and reduce waste and pollution. This is good, but if one reads these articles, they are highly slanted to give a positive review with little about negative effects. Mainstream media indeed does a good job of criticizing cars with internal combustion engines. Where are the reports that criticize container ships, as well as planes, trains, cruise ships, naval vessels, heavy equipment, and about 1 billion other machines across the planet that burn fossil fuels? More information about cargo and container ships. Here's a quote from an article from Progressive Policy Institute dated May 2024 titled Trade Fact of the Week. A new container ship launches every day. Alphaliner, a Paris-based maritime consultancy, counts 6,936 container ships operating worldwide this week, up from 5,101 in 2014. Mainly built in China, Korea, and Japan, these ships make up about 6% of the world's 105,000 cargo vessels. But being large ships, have a seventh of the world's 2.2 billion deadweight tons. That is carrying capacity of merchant shipping. The full container fleet has a combined capacity of 29.7 million TEU. This growth is not slowing. Denmark-based Shipping Association, BIMCO, says 350 new container ships launched in 2023 and 2024 will likely top 475. Let's now talk about yachts for a moment. The super yacht Dilbar, owned by Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanov, is the largest in the world by tonnage and valued at as much as 750 million. It employs over 80 full-time crew members and can accommodate up to 120 individuals. It has 2 helipads and the largest indoor pool for a yacht. It's powered by 2 diesel-electric engines and can reach a top speed of 22.5 knots, 25 miles per hour. Mark Zuckerberg in 2024 purchased a mega yacht named Launchpad. More than a football field in length, it is believed to have cost $300 million. It's equipped with 4 MTU diesel engines delivering 5,846 horsepower apiece. Launchpad has a companion ship called Wingman. This 220-foot-long ship is a support vessel with a helipad designed to complement the capabilities of Launchpad. Zuckerberg also owns an ultra-luxury yacht named Ulysses, which carries a private helicopter, car, and motorcycle. Let's get back to commerce. Once goods and grain and materials are unloaded from cargo and container ships, they have to be loaded onto primarily large trucks and trains to be distributed to many destinations. These large trucks and trains are mostly powered by gasoline and diesel engines. This requires a huge amount of fossil fuels. It does not seem feasible that these heavy machines can be powered by batteries. According to truck and industry statistics from 2021, I'm just going to read the underlined stuff. Trucks move about 72.5% of America's freight by weight. U.S. trucks haul approximately 11 billion tons of freight. There are over 4 million semi-trucks operating in the United States. Truckers drive about 170 billion miles annually. Semi-trucks average 6.5 miles per gallon. Hybrid motors average 8.9 million miles per gallon. That equates to 26 billion gallons of gas used annually. These stats are just for the United States. Trucking is a worldwide industry. According to the Association of American Railroads, freight railroads account for about 40% of U.S. long-distance freight volume, more than any other mode of transportation. Without railroads, it would take more than 80 million additional trucks traveling on public roadways and would take up 4 times more fuel. There are about 1.5 million freight cars and 31,875 locomotives. In 2018, approximately 424 million gallons of fuel were consumed. There are over 850,000 miles of railroad track in the world. The USS Gerald Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier and deadliest warship ever constructed, can hold up to 90 aircraft and over 5,000 personnel. It weighs 100,000 tons and can travel up to 35 miles per hour. Price tag was over $13 billion. It is powered by 2 A-1B nuclear reactors, and they do not have to be refueled for 30 years. Though it does not need gas and oil for fuel, all the jets and helicopters on board do. Also, oil will be used as a lubricant all over that ship. About military ships, a website called globalfirepower.com has data regarding the United States military strength for the year 2024. These stats are broken down into various categories, among them manpower, air power, land forces, and naval forces. Here's a list of U.S. naval vessels. And you can see the list there. Although it's small in number, some of these things are huge and expensive. Although some of the ships and subs are powered by nuclear engines, most require fossil fuels for power. Keep in mind that these are naval vessels just for the United States. There are over 100 countries with a navy, and about a dozen of them have a large navy. Almost all naval vessels leak a small amount of oil into the ocean, which altogether can amount to millions of gallons. There are also accidental spills. Some of this oil can wash up on shores, causing pollution problems. The U.S. Coast Guard has its own assets as well. And land forces for the United States include, and you can see there, huge amount of military vehicles. It is estimated that the U.S. military altogether consumes about 12,600,000 gallons of fuel per day, or 340,000 barrels. About 140 countries have an army, but only 45 of those countries have more than 100,000 military personnel. All of the combined land vehicles and sea vessels of all armies and navies constantly require an enormous amount of fossil fuels to keep them in a ready state in case of war. Unless the day comes when all land vehicles and sea vessels can be powered by a nuclear engine, demand for fossil fuels will remain massive. There's no way that the military and the Navy and the Merchant Marine are going to attempt to power all their vehicles with batteries or their ships with cells. This alone tells you that the goal to achieve net zero is a pipe dream. Let's now talk about cruise ships. The Icon of the Seas, the largest cruise ship in the world, was christened in January 2024. The Icon has a maximum capacity of 7,600 passengers and 2,350 crew members across 20 decks and weighs over 248,000 gross tons. She is the lead ship of the new Icon class, with a sister ship, the Star of the Seas, due to be delivered in 2025. Another ship is planned for delivery in 2026. The Icon is the first ship in the Royal Caribbean fleet that is primarily powered by liquid natural gas, but it does have a dual fuel engine that can use both diesel and LNG. Some environmental groups say that LNG is more damaging than other fuels because it releases more harmful greenhouse gas emissions. No doubt it requires a great deal of fossil fuels to provide power to turn natural gas into liquid natural gas and then transport it to where it is needed. About cruise ship pollution, following quote is taken from a Wikipedia article. I'll just read the underlined parts. Cruise ships generate a number of waste streams that can result in discharges to the marine environment, including sewage, gray water, hazardous waste, oily bilge water, ballast water, and solid waste. Cruise ships represent a small, although highly visible, portion of the entire international shipping industry, and the waste streams described here are not unique to cruise ships. Because cruise ships tend to concentrate their activities in specific coastal areas and visit the same ports repeatedly, especially Florida, California, New York City, Galveston, Seattle, and the waters of Alaska, their cumulative impact on local scale could be significant, as can impacts of individual large volume releases, accidental or intentional. One Googles the question, how many bulldozers are there in the world? It will come back with the answer, there isn't much information about the exact number of bulldozers in the world. And this information, you find that rather peculiar. There are countless bulldozers all over the world. Without them, we cannot build modern highways and bridges. They're also used in excavating and agriculture and clearing land. They are powered by diesel fuel, and they're expected to operate in remote places. They also require huge trucks and trailers to haul them where they need to go. There are roughly 200,000 cranes in use around the world. About 125,000 of them are used in construction. The remaining cranes are used in general and maritime industries, with an estimated number of 80,000 to 100,000. And there are very many different kinds of uses for cranes to transport heavy stuff. They even have cranes with wrecking balls used to demolish buildings. Most cranes use diesel engines, but some use gasoline engines, and a few are electric. Other heavy equipment and special machines are needed for construction and mining and logging, such as these 36. And I got listed excavators all the way through harvesters, logging trucks, and trailers. Heavy equipment is also needed for snow and ice removals, to fix down power lines, and to clear trees and boulders from roadways after a storm. Rototillers and cultivators of different sizes are essential for having a garden. Now, there are untold millions of gardens in the world. In addition, sit outside any main street of any town or city, observe the different kinds of trucks that drive by. Fire trucks, tow trucks, dump trucks, and so forth, garbage trucks. We've all seen them. If you actually sit outside and watch, you'd be surprised how many there are. You just kind of don't notice them. Almost all of these these machines are powered by either gasoline or diesel engines. Aside from heavy equipment, there are billions of gas-powered lawnmowers, weed eaters, hedge clippers, and leaf blowers worldwide. According to a lawnmower industry report in 2022, 69 million Americans own riding lawnmowers, and another 103 million own walk-behind mowers. Also plentiful are large area mowers for park maintenance, roadside maintenance, and fields. There are about 23,000 city parks in the United States alone. The majority of lawnmowers are powered by gasoline. Some are propane powered, some are battery powered, some have electric cords. As many people know, gas-powered mowers and leaf blowers emit much noxious smoke. Of course, this needs to be corrected to reduce pollution. It has nothing to do with climate change. The animated series King of the Hill revolved around Hank Hill, proud propane salesman in fictional Strickland, Texas. The show is based on a real propane business called Action Propane in Leander, Texas. Propane is used for heating, cooking, refrigerating, clothes drying, grilling, fireplaces, and generators. It is also used to power forklifts, lawnmowers, buses, delivery vans, as well as farm construction and industrial equipment. Conventional cars can be converted to run on propane by using a qualified mechanic. Propane is a byproduct of a natural gas process and crude oil refining, and it's transported to bulk distribution terminals by pipeline, truck, barge, railroad, and tanker ship. Propane is stored as a liquid in cylindrical containers that are made of sturdy steel, aluminum, copper, or composite materials. Propane can emit toxic fumes. However, propane power vehicles, sometimes called autogas vehicles, emit fewer greenhouse gases and pollutants than gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles. Even so, it takes fossil fuels to create and transport propane gas, and it takes fossil fuels to create the containers that hold propane. Out of sight, out of mind. The great majority of people in the world, though they enjoy the benefits of goods and services provided by all kinds of machines powered by fossil fuels, don't see too many of those machines. For the most part, these machines remain out of sight, hidden in hills and fields, prairies and forests, back roads, in the air and on the oceans. They don't see the machines in all the military bases. They don't see all the naval fleets on all the seas. They don't see all the planes in the sky. They don't see all the crews and cargo and container ships. Nor do they see all these containers unloaded and goods transferred to large trucks and trains. People mostly notice auto traffic. One would think that mainstream media would point out that we would not have all the benefits of modern society if it weren't for all these machines. and devices that drive most of their power from fossil fuels. Typical of most branches of media, they prefer to emphasize dangers, tragedies, wars, disasters, scandals, horrible accidents, and heinous crimes. They love to use words like shocking, horrifying, terrifying, catastrophic, and unprecedented. Newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst coined the phrase, "If it bleeds, it leads." He realized that shock, fear, evil, controversy, and disaster sell newspapers. That continues to this day. Climate change science. As stated at the beginning of this presentation, carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It is a greenhouse gas. However, how much it causes global temperature to rise is highly debatable. Science is still investigating. For certain, no one has scientifically quantified how much warming is natural and how much is man-made. Scientists who identify as climate realists state that man-made warming is not more than 1%. Neither has it been determined just exactly what is an acceptable mean global temperature. Even if it rises by several degrees, it's not going to cause disasters. It has been established that global sea levels are rising at a rate of about 0.17 inches per year. That means that by the year 2100, sea levels will have risen just over 1 foot. Humans are highly adaptable. If they live near any ocean, they have 75 years to move their house back a foot if they think it's going to be a problem. Alarmists claim, however, that climate change is accelerating. It might cause sea levels to rise over 3 feet by the year 2100. Even so, does this sound disastrous to you? Keep in mind that the Earth is currently in an interglacial period called the Holocene, which means there will eventually be another ice age. Since the end of the last ice age, temperatures have been naturally rising long before humans started to burn fossil fuels. But there have been periods since then when the Earth has cooled several times, such as when the Little Ice Age occurred between the years 1400 and 1800. During this Little Ice Age, Britain experienced a period of cooler temperatures than average. The Thames River froze over so often that Londoners set up Thames Frost Fairs to take advantage of the ice. These fairs were a major part of London life for almost 400 years and featured shops, pubs, and ice skating rinks. The most famous of the London Frost Fairs took place during the Great Frost of 1683-84, when the Thames froze for 2 months and the ice was 11 inches thick. This proves how adaptable humans are to a changing environment. The Thames froze for the last time in 1895. This date is surprising because the Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain in the year 1760 and soon spread to continental Europe and the United States. This means that Britain was burning massive amounts of coal in order to power steam engines to produce goods in its factories. This in turn means that a massive amount of carbon dioxide and smoke and water vapor were released into the atmosphere, which should mean, based on current climate change theory, that temperatures should have risen. So how is it that the Thames froze in 1895, 135 years after the beginning of the Industrial Revolution? For over 5 millennia, humans built ships with wood, and they were powered by sails and oars. Beginning in the mid-1800s, ships began to be built with iron and later steel. Sails and oars were replaced by steam engines, which were powered by coal furnaces that heated water boilers. This was another advance in technology because of the Industrial Revolution. This also reduced the need for wood and hence helped save the forest. It also made shipping and sea voyages much safer as long as ships avoided icebergs. Going back millennia into modern times, the idiom "waiting for my ship to come in" literally meant that the livelihood of investors, businessmen, and wives of sailors depended on a commerce ship making it back to port. The oceans are littered with ancient shipwrecks. There are many modern shipwrecks at the bottom of the oceans too, because during war, cannons and later submarines with torpedoes were used to sink ships. Hurricane Helene has been in recent news. Although it caused over 230 deaths and much damage, there have been far worse hurricanes in the past, and many occurred long before climate change became an issue. Here are some phrases and words taken from various news organizations reporting on Hurricane Helene. Complete obliteration of homes, apocalyptic devastation, untold death and destruction, catastrophic flooding, deadly, massive, smashing, ripping, ferocious, unprecedented. Haven't seen anything like this for maybe 100 years. CBS News reported these record water temperatures in Gulf of Mexico have been made significantly more likely by human-caused climate change, according to Climate Central. The North Atlantic Ocean as a whole has seen record warm temperatures in 2024, storing 90% of the excess heat from climate change produced by greenhouse gas pollution. Here are questions for Climate Central, CBS News, and any other news organization, politician, and scientist that agree with the assessment. What caused the Great Galveston hurricane of 1900 that killed an estimated 8,000 and destroyed about 7,000 buildings? And later, what caused the Great New England hurricane of 1938 that killed about 700 people and caused over $40 billion in damage in today's dollars? And there are videos and news articles about this hurricane on the internet. Although tragic, the destructive force of Hurricane Helene is not unprecedented. Why does mainstream news, including public broadcasting service and National Public Radio, not talk about the history of hurricane? Could it be that they prefer fear-mongering? In addition to reporting sad statistics, the news media should be investigating why people were killed in Hurricane Helene, particularly since people nowadays are giving much warning ahead of time. Why aren't we seeing numerous headlines that ask what can be done to prevent deaths and damage from hurricanes? It seems that the main contributing factor for death and devastation are homes and buildings that cannot withstand hurricane-force winds. It has been shown that concrete homes and geodesic homes can stand up to hurricanes. Even Habitat for Humanity homes do better in a hurricane than standard homes. Here's a news article about that. In 2018, 6 Habitat for Humanity homes in Panama City, Florida, survived Hurricane Michael with little damage, while the homes around them were severely damaged. The homes were built using the Habitat Strong program, which is based on the recommendation of the Institute for Business and Home Safety. The homes were built with concrete block construction, embedded straps in the concrete, and waterproof membranes in the roof. Former President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind Carter helped to build Habitat for Humanity homes, as well as Garth Brooks, Tricia Yearwood, and Jonathan Scott. Many other well-known people have either helped or contributed financial support. Habitat for Humanity was started by Georgia farmers Millard and Linda Fuller in 1976. Here are points taken from a September 2023 CBS News report titled, How Dome Homes Can Help Protect Against Natural Disasters. The dome home is able to withstand winds topping 200 miles an hour. Dome-shaped buildings made of concrete can withstand wildfires, floods, and earthquakes. Their shape also allows them to disperse tremendous weight without collapsing. Construction costs are generally higher, but so is the chance of survival. Above are pictures of 2 geodesic or geodome homes. On the left is a stylized standard geo home with a stone wall at the base. On the right is one called an aircrete geo home, also called a monolithic dome house. Aircrete is a lightweight aerated concrete made by mixing cement, water, and a foaming agents. Regarding all the homes utterly destroyed by Hurricane Helene, is it possible that the builders used the cheapest materials available in order to maximize profits? Someone should look into this. This page is about Ryan Hall, became an independent objective weather report because a reporter. He used to work for a weather station in Kentucky, and he has a team of storm chasers that are on top of all the storms and tornadoes and hurricanes. And at the bottom, I say, in a video posted on October 6th, Ryan discussed Hurricane Helene. He warned people about fear tactics regarding Hurricane Helene and the upcoming tropical storm Milton. I'll read the dark parts here, the bolded parts. The internet is crazy right now. This is the words of Ryan Hall. He can talk like this because he's independent. Anytime you read something or watch something that makes you feel scared or especially fearful, just know that the person who made that piece of content stands to greatly benefit financially based off how scared you are. The vast majority of people who are posting weather information online right now are not driven by trying to inform you or by trying to keep you safe. They're driven by money. I feel sorry for all the people in Florida right now who are probably getting bombarded by several different sources of information, and it probably feels impossible right now to truly understand what's going to happen. We don't need to be scared. We should rather be prepared. Here's a new thing up. Milton has the potential to be one of the most destructive hurricanes on record for West Central Florida, according to the National Hurricane Center. No one can deny that the hype about Hurricane Milton from almost all news organizations was massive and nonstop. They had everyone believing that this monster storm was going to cause unprecedented death and damage. Sadly, 28 people died, and of course there was widespread damage, but nothing like what was caused by Hurricane Helene. No one will admit that they overhyped this hurricane. Dozens of articles were examined to see how wide this hurricane was when it formed in the Gulf of Mexico, but this information could not be found. Rather, the distance from landfall, wind speed, and ocean surges were constantly reported. In theory, if a hurricane size is over 300 to 400 miles wide, the hurricane might not sustain high wind speeds for very long, and it would quickly dissipate once it reached land. This may have been true with Hurricane Milton. From the above satellite photo, one can see that the clouds extended all the way from Mexico to Florida, a distance roughly approximately 640 miles. For over 200 years, as the Industrial Revolution grew worldwide, smokestacks at coal-burning plants spewed black clouds of pollution. Strangely, despite the harmful effects, world population and life expectancy skyrocketed in and since the late 19th century. Nowadays, cleaner coal-burning plants give off white clouds of smoke, as shown above, which consists mostly of water vapor and trace amounts of sulfur, nitrous oxides, and particulates. Coal is usually pulverized and undergoes a cleaning process before it is burned. Wet scrubbers are used to remove gases, particularly sulfur dioxide. Particulates can be removed with electrostatic precipitators. Though coal is deemed to be evil these days, many, if not most people, would not be here were not for the Industrial Revolution fueled by coal. Auto racing, Formula One racing, NASCAR racing, speedway racing, drag racing, stock racing, motorcycle racing, and other kinds of machines racing are popular worldwide. If people who support these sports wanted to achieve net zero, all these racing machines could run in batteries. In such case, the races would be quiet and clean. No roaring engines, no clouds of smoke, and no smell of gasoline. How many people do you think will turn out to watch battery-operated machines race each other? Do you think they will find this as exciting, or do you think that they might admit that trying to achieve net zero in this case is not desirable? Data for the above graph was gathered from the worldodometers.info website regarding which countries had the highest CO2 emissions in the year 2022. China, the United States, Russia and Eastern Europe, the UK and Western Europe, India and Japan combined contributed 71.5%. which was a total of 31 countries. The remaining 169 countries in the world combined contributed 28.5%. These figures will be somewhat different by now. As of July 2024, China has 1,161 operational coal power plants out of 2,422 coal power plants worldwide. According to an NPR report in 2023, China has 6 times as many coal power plants starting construction as the rest of the world combined. The United States and other countries pursuing net zero are going to have to confront China. Otherwise, they're fighting a losing battle. In the year 2022, subsidies for the development of renewable energy were $15.6 billion in the United States alone. Worldwide, it has been reported that subsidies for renewables amount to $500 billion. Everyone wants a piece of the action, so to speak, including businesses selling wind turbines and solar panels, scientists looking for funding, students looking for grants, academic institutions wanting to achieve their budget goals, and journalists on the corporate payroll. They're all willing to claim that climate change is an imminent threat to humanity and the planet in order to get some of that free green money. Here's a quote: "The climate quote-unquote emergency is just used constantly as an excuse for extracting money from people. Politicians love it because they can virtual signal and say, look, I'm doing something to save the planet. In reality, what they are trying to do is fleece the public for more money." This is from Andrew Montford, Deputy Director of Net Zero Watch, October 9, 2024. Since the end of World War II, the United States has provided over $3.75 trillion in foreign aid to many different countries around the world. In 2023, the United States provided almost $61 billion in foreign military aid. The United States is currently spending a planned $63 billion on foreign and military aid in 2024. Imagine what we could do with that money at home. Could we build homes and schools and bridges and highways that could withstand hurricanes and tornadoes? Could we improve low-lying areas to better handle floods? Instead, the government and others are spending untold billions on wind turbines and solar panels to replace fossil fuels. Or should we say they are wasting money on a pipe dream? Here I provide a huge list of how fossil fuels created and sustained modern civilization. Almost everything we see around us was built using power from fossil fuels. I'll only read the two underlined ones. An estimated 2 billion air conditioning units in the world were built in factories powered by fossil fuels. Note, the International Energy Agency projects that the number of air conditioners could almost triple to over 5.5 billion by 2050. Before the Industrial Revolution and use of fossil fuels, people in Britain and Europe had chopped down a huge percentage of their forests to build homes, buildings, ships, and to use wood for heating and cooking. After the Industrial Revolution, those forests grew back. Facts and priorities. It seems that mainstream media, green energy devotees, and certain politicians fail to report facts and stats as contained in this report because the public might realize that attempting to change the climate by eliminating fossil fuels is far more complex and difficult than we have been led to believe. Modern civilization was built by and is heavily dependent on power supplied by fossil fuels. Those who promote the Green New Deal and net zero need to examine all of the facts and reassess their priorities. It's going to be nearly impossible to totally replace fossil fuels with renewables. In reality, it's a pipe dream. Wind turbines and solar panels do have their place, but they only work well in areas where wind and sunshine are plentiful. Instead of concentrating so much on building more wind and solar farms, we should consider using more natural gas, propane, hydro, nuclear, geothermal power, and cleaner coal-burning plants. Almost everyone will agree that we need to reduce pollution, which comes in many forms. Somewhere along the line, climate change and pollution became conflated, whereas it should be two separate issues. On a positive note, it appears that many companies and innovative individuals around the world are indeed attempting to create fuels and engines that are more efficient and emit less pollution. Air pollution in particular remains a problem. Even using hybrid vehicles and propane-powered vehicles will help mitigate air pollution. Land and water pollution remain problems as well. This should be our focus, not climate change. Conclusion. If humans suddenly stopped using fossil fuels, the global economy would quickly collapse because of lack of energy needed for manufacturing and transportation. There would be food shortages, widespread blackouts, and return to medieval society. Wind and solar energy cannot even begin to provide the power needed to maintain modern civilization. Untold billions of lithium-ion batteries, wind turbines, and solar panels would be needed, and eventually they will deteriorate and cause pollution problems of their own. Keep in mind that subsidies for renewables means that you, the taxpayer, will help fund these quests to decarbonize every sector of our economy. Do you feel like these changes to save the planet are being forced on you based on agendas set by people who believe they are saving you from yourself by using your money? Energy costs have risen almost everywhere. Politicians are talking about imposing a carbon tax and a carbon credit system. One has to wonder how long the public will go along with this charade until they have had enough. Based on the information in this report, do you think net zero actually work? Or do you think it's a pipe dream? Here's a real problem to think about. According to the World Health Organization, an average of 1.35 million people are killed in auto accidents worldwide every year. In America, since the revolution in 1775, over 1 million people have died in wars, whereas 3.5 million have died in auto accidents. And people are worried about climate change. Okay, here's a caveat where I explained that it's difficult to come up with real valid statistics, but I think my statistics are pretty close. Even when I check the Bureau of Transportation statistics, the information they have there is hard to find any information that it's not complex. Okay, so that will end it for me, Tom.
Thank you for doing that. You said that you spent, what, 120 plus hours?
Yes, over 2 months. And like you can read it, if you read it, you can read it faster than I can talk it. You can read it in 1 hour.
Yeah, I love it. So much data. I love all the data.
Yeah.
So
Well,
thanks
see,
for
that's my background. I am so used to that in my background, gather data, validate the data, produce reports. That's what I did all my life.
Okay, and then I will put the PDF up on my Substack, right?
Yeah,
Some people will
I'll
want to
send you
take a look at it.
yeah, delete the one I sent you and I'll send you this one.
Okay, very good. Any other points you want to make before we finish up here?
Oh, I think I've covered my bases.
All right, I'll let you go then. Thanks a ton for doing this. I'm going to be
Yeah.
watching this again, and
Okay.
I'm excited to get it published. Thank you very much, Harry Decker.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Tom. I appreciate your time and appreciate all the energy you're putting into this. One of these days, we're going to win.
Absolutely.
Truth
All right.
will come out.
Talk to you soon. Goodbye.